Defacto Gazette is a weekly publication of independent political and economic news analysis by the economist Jargal. Our gazette is published in Mongolian, English, Japanese, and Russian. Please order your subscription online at www.jargaldefacto.com or from the post office called Mongol Shudan near you. Also, you can order by phone at 7007 8916.
One is the fund of future.
Good evening. Welcome to Jargal Defacto Review, our weekly in-depth analysis of current news and affairs here in Mongolia with our economist and commentator Jargal Defacto.
Good evening. Happy New Year.
You can join in our conversation on MNP World Facebook page and on Twitter via hashtag Jargal_Defacto. For our topics today, the President of Mongolia made a statement in his address to the public about writing off loans of all pensioners while extending his New Year greetings. The laws passed by Parliament in recent years have come into force in January 2020. One of them was about increasing the minimum wage to 420,000 Mongolian Turks as a result of the tripartite agreement on labor and social issues in May 2018. Arvilerden, head of Road Policy Implementation Division, Ministry of Roads and Development, was arrested by the Independent Authority Against Corruption for extensive corruption. Our first topic is about the President's statement. In accordance with the recommendations of the National Security Council, the Parliament will discuss the issue and make the final decision. So my first question is that is it economically possible to write off loans of retired people? Why did the National Security Council issue such a recommendation?
Well, it caused a lot of debates in the country since that statement. New Year greetings of the President, who promised to annual loan of retired people from all commercial banks. We talk about 760 billion Turiks, which is borrowed by retired people. In Mongolia, there is a bank product called pension loan, and almost 80% of the retired people have that loan, which gives interesting thoughts because the pension income is not enough for people having a living standard, because for years, due to inflation and many other factors, people are really having a very small pension after working hard for 30, 40 years. So the President said that the Security Council of the country had decided to annul those loans. But it is happening at the same time when the state budget has a big deficit, and also the country has also large foreign debt, total some $7 billion debt, out of which 3 are to be paid for next 4 years from this one to come to 24. And plus, the country is existing or staying under the IMF conditions, and that pension fund of the country itself has already a deficit. The government has total 14 trillion Turiks owns to the pension fund. So under these circumstances, it's very heavy promise, and they have been promising because they say that the source of the money will be the proceeds from the Salkhit silver deposit in the Dondrove Amak, recently confiscated due to a huge corruption scandal, and they believe that they can, this company, which is now Irdines Silver resource company, a state-owned company, have already for the last 6 months some 500 kilos of gold produced, and the CEO of this company is saying that total up to 700 tons of silver will be produced from this deposit. So that's where the money they think they will come from.
Mm-hmm. Generally, what are the issues that the National Security Council should get involved in, and what issues they should not get involved in?
There is a law about National Security Council, in which law I have seen that, and the provision number 2 in provision number 7, it says, it has to do with the economy. It says in the provision number 2 that the Security Council should do its best to develop economy based on the internal sources. The provision number 7 says that this economic decision is to be made after research, and it recommend certain actions to the government. So these are the only 2 provisions that has to do close to what the President said. But these decisions, from the economic point of view, this decision sounds very weird, because a third person, be it a state or whatever, the third person is going to pay for a loan that another person took it. So economically, it doesn't sound as a loan. It is kind of, plus it's a big amount of money, 760 billion tugrik money, and it will make Mongolian money depreciated, and it will push towards inflation, and because there are all other foreign debt, including this one, added with this money, Mongolian tugrik is going to be weaker after that. From the judicial point of view, the Security Council has not subject to make economic decisions, and this decision is recommended to the government. Government is to bring the draft law to the parliament, which only after approval of that this money is be given. But of course, from the governance point of view, it really shows how they do very quick decisions without proper research on that, at the time when the country has a big foreign debt, and plus now they keep increasing the domestic debt. So this is not going to be good and easy. If from the justice point of view, there are some 230,000 people got that pension loan, but there are over 100 or so thousand people who have not get any loan, which stay in a not fair situation, which start already to complain. And from this, our new governor of the central bank had banned all commercial banks not to issue any more loan for retired people, so that it may bring a lot of chaos in the banking industry.
What will the positive and negative consequences be if the decision gets finalized by the parliament?
Of course, from the short period of view, these people will be very happy because their banks are paid, their loans are paid. And those who have not received, as I said, those people will not be happy. And it's actually raising an issue of the whole system of pension in the country. And the people are supposed to receive money after 30, 40 years of hard working. That money is supposed to be at least covering their monthly expenses. Instead, the pension is so slow, it does not. And also we should study what is the reason, what for these people are borrowing money against their pension payment every month. Some statistics say that their children force the senior people to borrow money, and they use not for the senior person, but for their own personal consumption. So we need to study more about really what is the cause. And of course, what is positive also for the politicians is it's because it's election year, 2020. If this money is so easy to pay the whole pension loan, they could do it last year. They did not. They do it this year, especially because it's election year, which makes the ruling party looks better. And many senior people, mostly senior people, go to election, and they will be supporting the current power. But however, people are not thinking, particular politicians don't think for long-term consequences of this sort of short-term thinking.
Okay. I have an additional question about this topic, a very short question. As an economist and commentator, do you know any case like this in other countries, especially in democratic countries which have a free economic?
I think there is no such a loan like a pension loan, because the whole pension money is about kind of insurance. It's kind of it's kind of already your money. So you cannot go putting as a collateral all this money and borrowing the money. And the money is supposed to support that retired person life instead of going to other. So that's why I think it's right decisions not to, there should not be a loan against pension.
Okay, let's move on to our next topic. It's about increasing the minimum wage to 420,000 Mongolian tugrks. As a result of this decision, the amount of social insurance premium has to become at least 56,000 MNT. So the question is, will workplaces cut vacancies due to the increase of minimum wage? How strong will it influence on the economy?
Well, minimum wage is always, in many countries, always make a certain impact on the economy, in particular on employment. Because in the certain countries there is an equilibrium at any moment of supply and demand of a workforce. Okay, then the workforce in its price, it is certain equilibrium is existing. Then we now increasing the price, which also decreases the employment level, just very logically. So first of all, it will play an important role on further decrease of jobs. And there is a study made in the US by Free Economic Institute, which says that there are several consequences. For example, minimum wage reduce employment, as we said. Also, minimum wage hikes reduce the earnings of low-paid workers, because low-paid workers, some are getting, as a result of, at the expense of other, some money, but some people will lose their jobs. So overall, the total low-paid workers will be not better off. And of course, it, like any more supply of money, the minimum wage hikes make products and services more expensive. These are the consequences of the minimum wage increase in the country, in any country.
The minimum wage has been increased a number of times.
They have decisions. Every 2 years they will reconsider increasing that minimum due to inflation. Several reasons. That's the trilateral, as they say, employees and trade union and government. Three trilaterals are sitting down together, and they have decided to increase that minimum. The minimum wage last year, for example, 320,000 tugriks, a bit over $120 or so dollar. Now it's $160 or so dollar. So that's the way how they agreed to increase, and which overall is not very good signal for in general terms of employment. As a result, for last years of consistent increase of this minimum wage. We have been observing constant decrease of jobs, and many Mongolians are now trying to go to Korea. There are already some 50,000 Mongolians there, and they look for jobs, better paid, and there the circumstances are completely different.
This change will have a direct effect on those who pay Social Security insurance premium individually. Is it right?
Yeah, well, how does it work? So 420,000 you receive. Now the employee receives that money and pays 13% social insurance money to the social insurance, 13% by voluntarily. So that the work period, career period is not interrupted. The person can have access to medical and other social insurances as the people who are paying normally from their salary. So it will not be substantial income into the social insurance fund itself, because many people will prefer, once 8% of Mongolian workers receive the minimum wage salary, minimum wage, and out of which I think very few people pay that insurance we talk about.
So our last topic is about corruption. Mr. Argulirten, head of Road Policy Implementation Division, Ministry of Road and Development, was arrested by the Independent Authority Against Corruption. The media reported that he had allegedly accepted bribes from a Chinese company regarding improvements to the highway between Ulaanbaatar and Darkhan. Why did the Author Against Corruption release Mr. Argulirten after arresting him on the crime scene?
They have seen on one side, they said that they have proved that he got bribes, and then the judge says that we don't have enough proof, and plus we can check him without arresting. So that was the back decisions. And however, it is one of the flies in the Chinese terms. You see, for last 8 years, China is combating corruption very severely, and their tactics is called kill the tigers, and the flies will be afraid of. China doing it successfully. They have prisoned a lot tigers, and many flies were afraid. Many flies also were arrested. But in Mongolia, it's vice versa. We are just arresting few flies, and not all tigers are moving around freely across the border, across the other countries, according to the investigations against corruption agency. Singapore, which has no corruption today, who is also criticizing China, is not doing enough as the Singapore people. They did the three things. First, they were fighting for not symptoms of corruption, like we do. This fly, the guy who got money. But you should fight with the causes of the corruption first. In Mongolia, this cause is now political party financing. All Mongolian corruption are coming from there, because political party financing is secret here, and under that secrecy, the Mongolian politicians sell government positions, and even the 60 billion tourist case are still pending at the court. Second way is the anti-corruption laws should be working not selectively, but partially. It should be for everybody, which is not the case in Mongolia. Third, the anti-corruption fight is not to be a weapon against your political opponents, which may be the case in this country. When one group is coming to the power, they are hunting after the next one. So without these three fights, Mongolia cannot stop corruption.
Is corruption committed to authorities being rightfully detected here in Mongolia?
Well, we have a so-called revenue report, right? Revenue, personal income report of politicians. We have for 3.2 million people, some 200,000 public officers, and out of which 1/5 or 40,000 are supposed and they must have reporting their income for this particular year, for the past year. So this year, 40,000 people are reporting. We find that their reporting of income is not enough. Also, we need to have a reporting of their expenses, which is not the case in Mongolia, which is the case in Australia and other developed nations, which stop the corruption to certain degrees, of course. Corruption never disappears 100%, but it is at least much less. So Mongolia needs to still report the expenses. Very clear example how it is not working in Mongolia, the case of fund for support of small medium enterprises. As we know, almost half of the parliamentarian members out of 76, they got money, billions of tugriks with just 3% interest rate, while the market rate is 16%, 20%. They took the money, and some of them, they have own non-bank financial institutions through which they have used this 3% cost money. They are borrowing through that non-bank financial institutions with 30% of interest rate. So 10 times they are making money on our public money, and nobody has yet have any court penalty whatsoever. So still Mongolia is not combating properly even this such a clear case corruptions. And also you asked whether we are efficiently detecting these cases. No, for example, a parliament member his or her income increases, okay, logically understandable way. But their spouses increase 10 times, 20 times their income according to this revenue of a report of their income. So nobody is bothering us to explain why is that happen, whether it has connection with the parliament member itself, or if there's any relative. We don't have no clue. We don't understand anything about that, don't have any information about that.
Why isn't the media following up on their politicians' income reports?
That's the whole point. In Mongolia, unfortunately, media is in the hand of their politicians and their related companies. According to the report of Reporters Without Borders, based in Germany, Mongolia has 500 or so SME, 500 or so media outlets, and 75% of them owned directly or indirectly by former or current politicians who have a high-ranking positions. You will not find anybody, any media or any politicians who has no media in this country today, almost. According to Freedom House report, Mongolian index media freedom is evaluated as partly free. Why? They out of 100 possible scores, Mongolia got 37. Legal environment out of 30, 12. Political environment out of 40, 12. Economic environment out of 30, 12. So it shows Mongolia is really partly free. Another case, which is a press freedom index, again by the same organization, Reporters Without Borders, we have 70th place out of 180 countries last year, 2019, while we had number 60 3 years ago. So we had the whole 10 countries are overriding us in front of us. So it's nothing surprising, because you see in Mongolian media TV, newspaper, big, scandal, that somebody this and that. So furious, and everybody is watching, and then that news disappearing. Nobody is talking about anymore about those indexes. The clear case, 49% of Erdenet Russian shares were bought with public money, with certain individuals. We don't know what happened to them now anymore. They were arrested, then released, then went for a treatment abroad. The boss of the whole this thing, and we don't know yet, and we don't know where are they. Where are those people? They are home. They have arrested, then released, and the question is coming: why you are arresting people if they have done nothing? Mm-hmm. If they have done something, then why you are releasing them so fast? So that's in general, the situation of corruption fight in this country. We need to improve a lot.
In your opinion, what should we do to develop investigative journalism to have free media?
For that, we should have not politicians having our own media. There should be restrictions, so that if you are the president of the country, you should not have own media. There is a very few cases where in Italy, for example, Berlusconi has own media network, which helped him a lot of course, to fight with his opponents, etc. It's in general even if in Italy they can do, in Mongolia it's so easily to do. So first of all, I think we should have more free media. And plus we have too many medias, by the way. For the 3.2 million people, we have almost hundreds of TVs, etc., which completely neglects the principles of media, which media is working with, advertisement. You cannot share several hundred TVs that income, which makes the media almost inefficient, and the owners, the politicians, have it just for the sake of having this media in case when they need to use against their opponents. So that's why we need to bring an order, relicense every media. That's what is in Japan, for example. In every prefecture, only 4 TVs, which makes good, strong power for media, good income, and media is able to hire quality journalists or professionally develop them. They have this capacity. So we don't, because for media, that's why the so-called closure agreement between the people who, for example, in the scandal, they pay media for silence. That's what's happening in Mongolia.
Thank you, Mr. General Defacto, for your comments. So that's all for today's review. This has been General Defacto. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next Sunday with more topics.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Goodbye.
The Defacto Gazette is a weekly publication of independent political and economic news analysis by the economist Jargal. Our gazette is published in Mongolian, English, Japanese, and Russian. Please order your subscription online at www.jargaldefacto.com or from the post office called Mongol Shudan near you. Also, you can order by phone at 7007 8916.
One is the Fund of Future.